Stand by now for See It Now with Edward R. Murrow, which originates in Studio 41 in New York City. Alcoa, Aluminum Company of America, in cooperation with CBS Television, presents the distinguished reporter and news analyst Edward R. Murrow in See It Now, edited and produced by Mr. Murrow and Fred W. Friendly. A weekly presentation of Aluminum Company of America, the nation's leading producer of aluminum. Now, speaking to you from the control room of Studio 41 is the editor of See It Now, Edward R. Murrow.
Good evening. Last week they handed out the Pulitzer Prizes. The gold medals went not to a great metropolitan newspaper, but to two weekly papers in North Carolina. One has a circulation of 1,700, the other has a circulation of 5,000. Their editors decided to fight and expose the Ku Klux Klan. They were told that they would lose circulation and advertisers. They lost neither. In Whiteville, the Rotarians really had something to sing about. Down in Whiteville, North Carolina.
R-O-T-A-R-Y, that spells Rotary. R-O-T-A-R-Y is known on land and sea.
The Rotary Club in Whiteville, like Rotary clubs everywhere, is made up of merchants, contractors, and professional men in the service of their community. Over a year ago, Whiteville was threatened by floggings and terror of the Ku Klux Klan. Then, two country editors fought and won a battle.
A great honor has come to us. This week, Columbus County newspapers have been given the Pulitzer Award. I understand this is the first time this award has ever been made to a weekly newspaper. I would like to read to you a part of this citation. For disinterested and meritorious public service rendered by a United States newspaper published daily, Sunday, or at least once a week, gold medals are awarded to the Whiteville, North Carolina News Reporter and the Tabor City, North Carolina Tribune. To Willard G. Cole and Horace Carter, we pay tribute to you. We are proud of you, and not only this community, but we feel the entire country is indebted to you for your courageous work.
Actually, there were two towns involved. This is Tabor City. This is the street where the Ku Klux Klan deliberately flouted law and order with two full-dress parades. This is Whiteville, the county seat. Near here, the Grand Dragon operated. A man was killed, a house burned, and perhaps 50 citizens flogged. This is the courthouse, where the Klan leaders were tried and convicted. This was an important piece of evidence, a rubber flogging whip. This is Sheriff Hugh Nance, who made the arrest.
You may not know what this is, but this is one of the instruments the Ku Klux Klan used here in our county during what you would call the reign of terror of the Klan in Columbus County. At that time, a few months back, the people here in Columbus County didn't know who would be the next victim to be carried out from their homes for no excuse whatsoever, put across the car fender, and one of these would be used on him.
High school principal H.E. Brown remembers that reign of terror for us.
Certainly the news report has done a tremendous job in view of what they had to go up against. Now this Klan business that the nation knows about, we really know about it here in Whiteville. It was something during that time that we can't describe in words. It was something that had to be felt. If you lived in this section, you would feel it. It was something that was written on the faces of persons as you passed them day by day. You didn't have to ask them, have you heard? You knew they had heard what had happened by the expression on their faces, and they knew you had heard. It was simply a matter of wondering what next, who next, and when will it all end.
The award was made on Monday. Tuesday was a big day at the Whiteville High School.
Many of you, I'm sure, read the newspaper this morning, and you learned from that two of our citizens here in Columbus County have received rather great honors. And not only the citizens, but the newspapers that they represent. And I believe all of us are proud of Mr. Cole and Mr. Carter for receiving the Pulitzer Prize. Now, Mr. Cole and Mr. Carter wrote the articles which aroused the people to action, but it was the public opinion which really got in behind the Klan. Now, I wonder if maybe you don't have some ideas you'd like to express about what you think this award means to our community and to us as citizens. Wayman?
Miss Ettinger, I think that all during the time while the Klan was inactive around here, that the people really had something to say, but they were afraid. And Mr. Cole, as writing his articles in the paper, opened the people up, and through his courage and bravery, writing about the Klan, the other people followed him and followed in his footsteps and began to say what they really thought and opposed the Klan.
Dan?
Miss Editor, I think we all know that this Klan sure messed us up in one sense by putting such much slander on our community. And I think that the award that Mr. Cole and Mr. Carter received will help us get back on the map as a good community and town to live in, and not just have a flog raising and beating good time down here like everyone in the States thought we were. We're good citizens, and we want everyone to know this fact.
This is the Tabor City Tribune. Circulation 1,700. This is editor Horace Carter, age 32, talking about the Klan he fought.
They started criticizing everybody, the Jews and the Catholics and the Negroes and the United Nations and just about everything you could think of except the Klan and the Bible.
Horace, why does a small town editor like yourself, who might be a little weak in forces at his disposal, why'd you take him on? Why'd you fight him?
Well, we felt that no group of people had the right to inflict their type justice on any individual, that no one had the right to take a man from his home and beat him up regardless of what he had done. This is just an American way of life. We have freedom from fear, and this was trying to run our community in a lawless type way, and just because you didn't like the way a man parted his hair or the kind of shoes he wore, you took the right to take him out and punish him, and that's not our philosophy on the way that life should be lived in America.
This is the newspaper of Willard Cole. Circulation 5,000. He was threatened and he was intimidated. But in the long haul, he never lost a subscription or an advertisement.
Well, I think you'd have to say it in this way, that you just have to stand for what's right. If you don't, you aren't standing for much. And so that seemed to be the guiding thing in our little campaign. Primarily, of course, my objective was to defeat a organization and a group of men who were taking away the liberties and the rights of individuals.
What do you see as the whole meaning of this award? Is it just an award, or does it have more meaning?
Well, to me, actually, I think that probably the richest harvest and the greatest benefit that I've received from it is a realization that our renewal of faith, that an awakened citizenry can defeat any group of individuals or any group that strives to defeat those principles that America stands for. My feeling is that I've gained a new confidence that any community can win for right and for justice if they unite in a common cause.
We suggest that if the fight against intolerance, bigotry, race prejudice, hatred, and fear is to be won in this country, it must be won in the towns such as those two that you have seen here, in the white bills in the Tabor cities throughout the land. Time now for Alcoa.
Aluminum comes from an ore called bauxite. It is mined above and below the ground by conventional mining methods. It is mined by many companies in many parts of the world. Alcoa mines bauxite in Bauxite, Arkansas, and in Suriname, South America. From here, the bauxite is shipped to processing plants where it is crushed, washed, and dried. These plants are located in Arkansas, Alabama, and Illinois. The next step is the actual production of metallic aluminum. To make this aluminum, the refined bauxite is shipped to 7 Alcoa smelting plants from Washington to Texas, from Tennessee to New York. In the production of aluminum, large quantities of electricity are used. This power is generated from water or from natural gas. In huge cells like this, with the aid of the electric power, Alcoa workers make the molten aluminum, and the metal is poured into molds to cool and harden. From these smelting plants, the aluminum is shipped to 16 plants in 12 states where it is processed into more useful forms. Here are some of the things the men and women of Alcoa do to aluminum in these plants. At modern rolling mills like this one at Alcoa, Tennessee, they roll it into light but strong sheets of aluminum. They draw it into wire at plants like this one at Messina, New York, and later they strand it around the steel wire core to make electric cable. Tons of aluminum are cast into hundreds of useful products at Alcoa's foundries. It is cast by machines or by hand. In some plants, aluminum is extruded into a variety of shapes, extruded like toothpaste squeezed through a tube. From these and many other useful forms, thousands of aluminum products are made. Roofing sheet and irrigation pipe for the farms of America. Aluminum PT boats for our Navy. Tank cars for industry. Windows, Venetian blinds, and screens for the modern home. Truck wheels, truck trailers, and aluminum cars for better transportation. This, then, is the story of how aluminum is made, and how Alcoa's 50,000 men and women have since 1888 made Alcoa the nation's first and leading producer of a vital metal, aluminum, by Alcoa, Aluminum Company of America.
This gadget that I hold in my hands is called a 20-inch lens. And in the hands of a skilled cameraman, it can bring in pictures from 500-600 yards. Most of this next report was shot by Leo Rossi and Norman Alley using this lens. They were shooting the illegal arrival in this country of hundreds of people. A lot of it was shot either at dusk or at dawn. And shooting close up on the arrival of illegal immigrants is just something that cameramen do not do. Every 30 seconds, a so-called Mexican wetback enters this country illegally. The number is increasing. Some days, as many as 5,000 are caught and sent back in a single day. We asked Jack Beck to go down from KNX in Hollywood to the border and make this report. This is the morning prison train out of Southern California into Mexico. It makes this run every day about dawn. Its cargo, Mexican wetbacks, who have sneaked across the border and are being deported. Most of them entered the United States by wading across the Rio Grande in Texas or the New River in California, thus the term wetback. On an average day, 3,000 wets get across. Many of these cross the 1,600-mile border into Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and California. This report is about the traffic in the Imperial Valley of California. Here alone, the figure is 1,500 per day.
"5:30 in the morning in Calexico, Mexicali, along the international border, and the night's catch from Indio is being brought in by the Border Patrol, having just unloaded from prison cars aboard a Southern Pacific train. A group of perhaps 200 wets. Yesterday's catch, probably, from the northern portions of this Border Patrol sector, being brought down to be returned across the border through the fence."
While the government spends tens of thousands of dollars a day trying to enforce the McCarran Act in our ports on the East Coast, an efficient but small force of Border Patrol officers makes a vain attempt to control the illegal traffic on the Mexican border. The job has been compared to trying to scoop the tide off the beach and pour it back into the ocean. Some of these Mexicans have crossed the border many times this year, have ridden the train back a half dozen times. But many are never caught. Some make it to San Francisco, Chicago, and even New York. Statistics have indicated that when the traffic in wets is high, the supply of dope in our big cities increases proportionately. It's a wide-open border, and the FBI knows those who violate it are not all wetbacks or Mexicans. This is the rich Imperial Valley at El Centro. 25 years ago, there was no problem here because there was no water here, and little could be grown. Then came the Hoover Dam and the All-American Canal. Farmers say they used to pray for rain. Now they telephone for it. The water from the Colorado River flows in an endless quantity, virtually on tap, and it has transformed the Imperial Valley into a lush, fertile valley. An annual yield of $255 per acre. Everything grows here. Grapes, oranges, dates, beans, lettuce, cabbages, melons, and tomatoes. Currently, the big harvest is in carrots. Water and modern farming machines made the Imperial Valley produce, but machines can't pick these vegetables. Ancient stoop labor is still the best method. And to meet this demand for low-paid, stooped manpower, an illegal traffic in Mexican wetbacks has grown and flourished. This is the border where they cross over. On the other side of that fence is Mexico. 70,000 wetbacks in a single town waiting to come over.
It's just about 2 o'clock of a rather hot Saturday afternoon here in Calexico. What you're looking at across something called the New River is Mexicali. It's the old town in Mexicali, and it's visible from the bluff on which we're standing, looking over into Mexico. We're standing on a bluff which is approximately 100 yards from the wire fence which you see in the foreground. That wire fence is one which runs for a distance of about 5 to 6 miles on both sides of Calexico, Mexicali. Calexico, Mexicali is actually one community with a fence, the border, between it. What you're watching is a group of wets on the Mexican side who are making preparations to come over into the United States, crossing the fence, which you see bisecting the river. A Border Patrol man will be staked out here sometimes from early in the evening until midnight or midnight until early in the morning. But again, this is a reflection of the fact that the Border Patrol only has so many men and so many critical points to cover. Working their way out to this point that I mentioned now is a party of 3, 2 men and a girl, which, from what we have been able to discover, is a rather unusual grouping, and that most, by far, of the wets who come through are young Mexican males, and it's only very rarely that you hear of a girl being in such a party coming across. The critical point in the crossing here is that jog you see in the fence with the sign hanging up above it. And there is a slit in the fence down there, an aperture, and it's possible for them to slip through this hole in the fence. Now here comes the first member of the party that wets through. He is now on United States soil, having just stepped through the hole in the fence that you can see in the juncture down there across the New River. We have another couple coming along now, look to be a youngster, maybe 15, 16 years old, and another woman. As you can see, the distance between the edge of the river and the fence here is very narrow, and it's necessary to cling to the fence and step along the concrete abutment which forms the foundation of the fence. Now here comes the second member of the party, the girl who was with the other 2 men. The third member of the party still remains on the Mexicali side of the border fence. Pair is inching out now, clinging to the fence. The way evidently having been established is clear, and our own intentions not related to law enforcement. 2 of the party that we watch come across the fence, a young woman, looks to be about 26 or 27 years old, in a blue dress, red sandals, with a man fairly well dressed in a business suit, gray fedora hat. Is now walking slowly into Calexico, now about 300 yards well into the United States and heading into town.
There are some 900 men charged with the protection of this 1,600-mile border. Reporter Jack Beck talks to Chief Parker.
How would you say your present activity compares with say the patrol's duties of a year ago?
Well, we're running a much larger number of apprehensions per day or per month now. A year ago, I believe we ran 119,000 apprehensions in this sector.
What's it look like this year?
It looks as though at the present rate we will approach 200,000.
200,000 for this year. Well, I've noticed recently that there are reports out of Washington that a cut in the department's appropriation would eliminate the use of your aircraft. Now, what's that going to do to your operation? Will it hamper it?
Yes, it will hamper it very seriously, Jack. At least in this sector, we have found that the airplane is a means of effecting a considerable economy. For example, by the use of the plane for about an hour, we'll say, each morning, we can locate all the groups who are working, all the groups who are moving. And in that manner, we can save the work of many crews and a lot of mileage on our vehicles.
The plane they may lose works like this. The pilot is able to spot clusters of wetbacks almost as a forest ranger spots fires.
(168) calling Jeep 208. Come in, please. This is 208, go ahead. 208, 7 west, going up the west bank of the Highline Canal, about 6 miles north of your present position. 7 of them on the west bank, 6 miles north, over. 10-4.
Most of the arrests are without incident. These same wets have been arrested several times before, probably by the same officers. There's no point in running. They can have another try at the border tomorrow. Sometimes the wetbacks travel 100 miles before they're caught. Chief Parker's men patrol the freights on horseback. Again, no violence. The two countries are very sensitive about incidents. There is no punishment for crossing the border, just deportation. Those who don't ride the rail try Highway 99, the busy turnpike of the valley. Every car coming north is checked. The suspicious ones are asked to pull over to headquarters for a further inspection.
United States Immigration Inspection. What's your nationality? Where were you born? Thank you.
Reporter Beck and cameraman Alley waited 19 hours for an incident. There was no arrest in this case. This is probably the only border in the world where if you're caught, you get only a free ride home. But the biggest percentage of the wets are flushed out of the fields during raids. Until recently, some of the farmers worked a racket of letting the wets get captured toward the end of their employment. Often in the excitement of a raid, they were marched off without time to be paid. Now, the Border Patrol stands by and makes the farmers pay. It must be stated that a few farmers refuse to hire wets, but most of them do, and in doing so, reduce their labor costs by as much as 40 cents an hour. Some wets work for less than $1 a day. Grower Hy Cremoyan tells why he hires wets.
People say, why don't you get domestic labor? There isn't any domestic labor. They're not domestic labor, second generation. They're not taught to do stoop labor. They're not taught to use a hoe or a shovel. They're taught to drive automobiles and drive farm holes. And I can't do my farm labor by driving farm holes. So I have to have stoop labor Mexicans to complete my farm work. Twice I almost lost this field because of the immigration officer picking up my men 3-4 times a day. Once at 11 o'clock at night, 4:30 in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, and and twice between that time. I had to make I had to hire a lot of new men in order to get this field under control. People say, why don't you get nationals? I can't get national because this ground here I've leased for only 4 months. And I can't afford to spend money to build new house for the nationals. They have to have shower, running water, and housing system. This old shack here, the wet Mexicans, they came over here and fixed it up, and it was livable for them. But the immigration officers came and took it up and broke the house up while I was taking them up.
My name's E.B. Farmer, and I'll tell you how this looks to me, Mr. Murrow. We need these wetbacks here to do our work for us, and they need the work. And every night you see them coming down here with 20 and 30 in a bunch. And the wets, as a rule, I find are better workers than the nationals.
There is a treaty agreement by which a certain number of Mexican nationals are legally imported to do stoop labor as controlled units. This is a legal group coming in. The quota is low, and many Mexicans can't pass the physical requirements. Some of the farmers, in turn, resist the nationals because they get higher wages.
Say, how many men did you want today?
147.
What are you going to use them for today?
Vegetables.
Vegetables? What
Corn,
kind?
tomatoes, beans, eggplant.
You're not getting any date men today?
No.
No. Well, go right ahead. They're all ready for you.
This is a camp where the controlled nationals are hired, much as in a hiring hall. This is a legal operation, as contrasted to the illegal wetbacks. The farmers who use these men are permitted to select them, and there is very little risk of importing disease or narcotics. But many more wetbacks are hired. Technically, the wetbacks are subject to fine or imprisonment, but as a matter of practice, nothing happens to them. We do not have enough courts to try them or enough jails to house them.
Déjenme ver las manos otra vez. A ver, campesino. Ah, bueno, señor.
At the height of the wet season, the competition is so heavy that many of the local workers are forced to move north in order to keep working. The big losers, next to the nation itself, are the local farm workers. This is a meeting of Local 274.
We're not against the wetback, as you know, as a man. We're against the system that exploits it. So I want to make a series of recommendations to this board. This is what I'd like to suggest, brothers and sisters, is for every member to report all cases of farm labor contractors who are hauling illegals. We will take these reports and present them to the State Labor Commissioner in Sacramento and request him immediately to cancel the license of these contractors who are trafficking in illegals in the Imperial Valley.
That fence is the frontier between two friendly nations, surely one of the most porous frontiers in the world. This traffic in individuals is illegal. 1 out of 2 only happens to be caught and sent back. The rest of them fan out across the country. Some of them are never apprehended. This is a story that has been told nowhere so well as by Gladwin Hill of the New York Times. This is the story of a search for cheap labor, a law which is not being enforced. It is a threat to our security, perhaps to our health. It is a triumph of expedience over law, a law which perhaps should be enforced or changed. Good night and good luck.
See It Now is presented each week at this time by Alcoa.